She is the recording police. All right. So, all right, it's recording, and I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go like that. All right. Okay. So, the power of your story. What I really would love for everybody to realize is that you do not need some giant before and after, like amazing photo to start your business. In fact, I hear it from new coaches all the time that, well, I haven't even gotten my program yet, so how can I start coaching? And I'm going to tell you that doing your program, drinking your Shakeology, are those part of the vital behaviors? Yes. Will they help you build your business? Yes. Showing your consistency in that, will that attract people and show them that it's possible? Of course. Having awesome before and after pictures, will that attract people? Yes. But that is not the one and only way to build your business. And in fact, it's probably not even the most, influential way to build your business. The best thing that you can be doing is sharing your story and your journey. And that doesn't just start with when you became a Beachbody coach. And that doesn't just start because you started Insanity or 22-minute hardcore or whatever that is. That story started a really long time ago. And going through our story not only helps us to promote our business and to relate to other people who will then see us as, an inspiration and somebody that they can relate to. And if she can do it, I can do it. Or if he can do it, I can do it. But it's also a really great way to figure out sort of your why, because you can't really know where you're going unless you know like where you're starting and where you came from, right? So an exercise that I would love everybody to do after they get off this call, so your first assignment, is to write out your story. Write it out. Like, I don't know if any of you have done this already, but start from the beginning. And when I say start from the beginning, I mean like the very beginning. What makes you who you are? And this is also going to help you build your brand. Once you figure out your story, you figure out your brand, you figure out your posting, you figure out your audience, you figure out pretty much everything, your why. So it's that important. And so I know some of you are new and some of you are old, but the first thing I'm going to do is sort of tell you a little bit about my story, because then I'm going to break it down for you and tell you what that taught me about how to post. Okay? Sound good? Awesome. All right. So I grew up in a family where, I never really wanted for much. My parents always provided me with everything that I wanted. And my grandfather was really well off, and he didn't like hand us things, but he always sort of showed us the type of lifestyle that we could have. So I've always really, really looked up to that and really wanted that and wanted to provide that to my friends and to my family. And so growing up, my parents got divorced because my dad was an alcoholic. And I remember being in a household where I really took care of my mom all the time. I woke up and I would clean the house. I would do the dishes. I would help my little sister get ready for school. I would go and wake my mom up and have her have her finally get up in her PJs and bring us to school and then come back. And I really took on that like mother role. I also was always the one that my parents were always fighting. So I was always the one who was sort of the mediator. I was the middle child. So of course I was the middle child of 2 kids. And then I was the mediator between my parents. So a big part of my background was always trying to work with different people and helping everybody like get along. And when my parents got divorced, I became really depressed and I started eating away my feelings. That's what I did. I was a very social person and I always tried to pretend like I was very happy, but at that time I was not happy. I would get back from school and I would sit there and I would eat in my bedroom, and not like, healthy things. Like I was eating like donuts and whoopie pies and Funyuns and sitting in my room being depressed. And I gained a lot of weight. And of course, the more weight you gain, the more like, you get depressed, the more you eat. In the words of fat,
it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle. So, I wasn't feeling good about myself, and I was about to go into high school, and my mom, knowing the only things that she knew at the time, suggested that I start doing like Jenny Craig. So I did Jenny Craig, which meant that I had a prescribed meal that I ate every single day, and they like suggested that you worked out, but like you didn't really work out, and the food was filled with chemicals and crap, and I was starving all the time, because even though like you're supposed to be eating like healthy, you're really not. It's all a bunch of crap food. And so I lost some weight, but I gave up on it before I ever hit my goal or even close to my goal, and just said, that's good enough. This is like, I don't want to starve. I don't want to be miserable. I guess this is just where I'm at. This is what my body likes. This is where I'm going to be the rest of my life. And so I just got used to that. I just figured that's how it was. And then I went into high school, and, you know, I was happier in high school, but I certainly didn't work out. I started drinking. I started, you know, partying. And so like, I didn't lose any weight. In fact, I gained a little bit more. And then I went to college and I gained more. And it wasn't until I came home, and like sort of realized how overweight I had become, that I started doing anything about it. And, you know, so Ryan and I were living together at the time, and I found the infomercial for, what was it?
Turbo Gym?
No, before that.
Oh God.
Gunnar Peterson.
Oh, yeah, Gunnar.
He had like these like ball workouts and stuff like that. And so I started doing that, and I was waiting tables, and I started losing a lot of weight. And that was fantastic. But then I didn't have like a coach or a system or a plan or anybody there helping me. And I wouldn't listen to this kid, so it didn't really matter. And so I plateaued, because I didn't know that I should, you know, change my weights. I didn't know that I should change my eating habits. I didn't know that, you know, my body was just getting used to where I was, and that's why it wasn't moving from where it had, you know, I lost a good amount of weight, but then I plateaued and I got sort of depressed with that. And so I kind of stopped what I was doing. And so I slowly but surely started gaining all of that weight back. And then my dad passed away in 2009, and I went back into that emotional pattern and depression of eating. And it wasn't until I stepped on the scale and realized I was 197, I think it was 197 pounds at 5'7". That's not normal. And I was like, oh my God, I am almost 200 pounds. And that was sort of like a wake up call for me. And so I ordered TurboFire off of an infomercial, and I did the payment plan, because we couldn't afford it at the time, because I was waiting tables and spending all my cash on like stupid stuff like booze all the time. And so, you know, I got TurboFire, and I would start it, and then I would fall off a week later, and I would be like, crap, I need to start it all over again. And then I would get in like 3 or 4 weeks, and then something would derail me, and I'd be like, oh, I should start it all over again. So I didn't ever make it very far in the program, because I was always going back to the beginning, because I thought that's what I needed to do. And we had our wedding coming up, and I thought our wedding was enough motivation for me to lose weight as well, but it wasn't. And the reason is because this hadn't changed. My head hadn't changed. And in early 2013, it was actually Memorial Day weekend of 2013, I met Jordan Bach on a camping trip, and we both started talking, and he recently had witnessed somebody jump out of a building in front of him in New York City and commit suicide. And so I started talking to him about my father, and we started talking, and we got along so well, and we just jived and started following each other and connecting on social media. And that's when I found Gabby, because he did an interview with Gabby Bernstein, and I started following her. And so I got her books, and I started reading her books, and then my mind started changing slightly. And then I saw people posting about insanity. And then I decided, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And then I started doing insanity, and I started following it, and I did it every day for the 60 days, and I lost 30 pounds. And then people were asking me about it. And so then I decided, even though I didn't want to do this business before, that I could see how this works. And so I started coaching. And then, you know, so it all trickled down from there. But, you know, pieces of my story I didn't tell, or like, you know, I didn't want to do multi-level marketing because we'd tried it before. And I thought that it was shady and weird, and I was scared of what people would think. I was also fearful because I was overweight. But through Gabby and through different things, I changed my mindset, and I changed what I was doing and moved past it. So why do I tell you all that? And I didn't do the greatest job of telling my story, but the reason I tell you all that is because how many pieces of that story can somebody else relate to? How many people come from a divorced background? How many people come from an alcoholic father or parent? How many people emotionally eat? You know, I ate too much, but how many people don't, you know, they like starve themselves or they have an eating disorder in the other direction. Like that's something somebody can relate to. You know, death, not being able to stick to a program, restarting, continuing to start and stop and start and stop, not being able to find that motivation.
Not having a system to follow.
Yeah, not having a system to follow, not having a coach to say, hey, you just need to tweak this and you can keep doing this and you'll see your results. Or, you know, maybe nobody ever like introducing you to something that particularly like a personal development piece, like, you know, Gabby or whatever, that could change your mind and move you forward, right? So those are all different pieces of my story that I can talk about. Now, if I went out every single day and said my entire story from start to finish and every little piece of detail about it, everybody would be like, please stop talking. Like, I've heard your story like 1,000 times and I don't have all day to read like a novel on Facebook. But if I take little pieces of that story and every single day put it in a way where I can show somebody else, like, listen, I went through this and you can go through this too and still be successful, or you still can be healthy, or you still can be happy. Those are all things that people can relate to. So figuring out what your story is, the easiest way to do it is to write it all out and get detailed. And it's okay to get detailed because you're just writing it out on a piece of paper, or you can type it out in Evernote or whatever you want to do. And then go back through it with a highlighter and highlight those moments, those little moments that actually mean a little bit more and that had such an impact on you or changed you in some way. And those are the pieces that you're going to breadcrumb out to people on a daily basis. And everything that you do should relate to this business. So, you know, it might be, you know, like, okay, so when my grandmother passed in February, you know, I put a post up about how in the past, when something bad happened, I would have probably reverted to emotionally eating. But because of the support of the test group that I was in at the time and my commitment to that, I'd even signed a document. Instead of sitting there and shoving my face full of stuff that I knew wasn't going to be good for me and in fact make me feel worse, I did a burpee challenge and had people like it so that I would have to do burpees. And then I made Kat and Ryan do them with me. And so we did 200 burpees and it sucked balls. But you know what? I got a lot of likes out of that. It was good for conversation starters. And yes, this is getting recorded and I just said sucked balls, but you know, whatever. It is what it is. It's real life, right? And so, you know, so basically that's my point. Figure out what your story is. Figure out those little pieces that you can breadcrumb on a daily basis. And if you do so, you can't tell me that you can't come up with one post at least a day that would relate to somebody else in your audience and that they'd be able to go, huh, she went through that too and she made it through it, I can too. So that's the part about the story. What was the other piece I had? There's something else I said in the beginning and now I can't remember it.
I didn't know there was going to be a quiz. Story and anybody in the chat? No?
Nope. I lost where I was. That's fine. Pop quiz. What's that movie? Pop quiz.
Pop quiz. I have no idea.
Oh, how to break it down and share. Well, I kind of just did that. So, I'm not sure, but you just did that. LOL. All right. So, you know, so everybody, yeah. So you don't have to, like I said, so that's what's going to attract people to you. It's not going to be the fact that you're doing a workout. It's not going to be the fact that you have Shakeology. It's going to be who you are doing that attracts people to you. That is the biggest thing that you have to sell. It is your most valuable commodity, is yourself and your story. And the deeper you can get into that story, you can just take little tiny details all the time and create one little thing into a post. And from that, you know, you're going to attract different people and different parts of your story are going to attract different people.
And if I could just add one thing, I think the biggest thing to take away is that everything that she was talking about is prior to becoming a Beachbody coach. So her entire story for the last 15 minutes of what she's been explaining was from elementary school right up until the time that she became a coach. It's not once she became a coach her story started. It's because of everything that's happened. This is why I decided to become a coach. This is what I'm doing. But this is why it relates back to everything that transpired throughout my entire life. And taking those little nuggets and making those an individual post with a nice picture with your face on it and talking about that somebody can relate to. And it brings it back to Gary Vee. What you give attention to and those little pieces of your life that you talk about the alcoholic parent, about going through death, about being an emotional eater, about doing a workout but not really knowing what to do from day to day. Everybody has that struggle. Everybody that I see posting on Facebook that they're in the gym that have no clue what they're doing, but they're just there because they feel like they have to do something, or they're running on a treadmill for 15 miles. They have no idea. So you can help them by saying, I was in this situation, but this is what I decided to do, and this is where I am now.
So, and I remember now what I was going to say. So there are different pieces of your story too, like within, like, yes, you could have an emotional side to it. You can have your physical and your health side of it. There's also a financial side of it. Mm-hmm. So like what's the financial story that you have? You know, were you grown up to think that, you know, money was evil? Did you grow up in a household where, you know, you were taught that money was a way to help other people? Were you shown a different lifestyle than what you have, and so you currently want that? Were you, you know, or maybe like you were in a household like mine where like my dad got up before I was awake and he didn't get home until like 7 p.m. You know, he was gone like all day long. And then, you know, you saw like your grandfather who was always around and like golfing, and it didn't even seem like he was working, and yet like he had more money. So you were like, how does that work? You know, so many people who have freedom of time, but when they have freedom of time, usually it's that they don't have that much money. And then you see people who have like, you know, freedom with money, but then they don't have the time to go use that money. And so there's very few people where you see that like it goes together, and this business creates that together. And so that's like a very big driving force for me, is like, life is short. I wanted more time to do what I want, and I want the means to do what I want with that time. So, you know, that's a piece of your story too. So look at it from all angles, whether it's emotional, mental, physical, financial, and looking at all of your story that way too, I think you're going to find your why as well. And that why is really what's going to drive you in this business. It's what's going to keep you going when you don't want to do it. I love that saying that, like, if you have a strong enough why, you can endure anyhow. Mm-hmm. And it's true. Like, it's pain and pleasure points, right? So like if you associate pain with reaching out, you're probably not doing it. But if you start associating that with a freedom of your time and life and money, then all of a sudden you're like, I'm gonna reach out all day. So like it's about all of that stuff. So anyways, long story short, get it? You're making your long stories short all the time on Facebook. Breadcrumbs. That's all I got for you. It was a fly by the seat of my pants. I didn't know what I was going to talk about 5 minutes ago. I told that to the team. Well, it was longer than 5 minutes ago, but on the little diamond call I had before this, I said I didn't even know what I was going to talk about tonight. That's what you got.
Good call.
Questions. And it can be questions about anything. It doesn't have to be questions about your story. I'm just looking at the stuff in here. Okay, cool. No questions? Not one question. Helpful. Awesome.
I'll give a personal development tip out there. One of the things that we read early on in wanting more time and freedom and money was, I don't know if everybody's heard of Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. But it's a really great book, and he talks about how he had a very well-educated father that worked all the time, that was institutional minded and get the 40-hour, 50-hour a week job, work hard. And then he had his friend's father, who was more of a business owner, more of an entrepreneur, and owned businesses and seemed to have all kinds of time, but he also had money, and he decided on who he wanted to learn from. And the nice thing about this business, like Joan said, it comes with the wealth building activities of reaching out and inviting people to the opportunity and coaching and all that stuff. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad's a good book.
All right. Nobody has any questions. We're going to go.
That's all, folks.
And 3, 2.
Are you giving a countdown? Everybody's leaving.